Okay, the third little talk here about this threshold covenant. Now remember, what we're talking about is in the ancients' mind, there was like this barrier to cross if you were going to go into someone's home. There's this barrier that must be crossed, and that's the threshold, and a sacrifice must be made in order for that barrier to be broken. Okay, so when marriages took place, for instance, this author quote gives examples of, like in Syria, the bride must come to her husband's home, signifying her acceptance into that family, but only as a lamb is sacrificed at the threshold. And the Armenian culture of their marriage vows were taken, but after the wedding, then the couple goes to the bridegroom's home, and at that moment the lamb is sacrificed on the threshold. The couple steps over the blood into the home. And those of us who remember traditional American values, we remember that the bride used to have to be carried over the threshold of the home by the bridegroom. Remember that? Or the hotel, or whatever, that, and you didn't, the bride didn't step on the threshold. Well, that goes way back to, there's such a reverence for the threshold in these cultures, in the Middle Eastern cultures, that Arabs to this day apparently say Bismillah when they go across a threshold, because it's a holy place to them. I forgot what that means. But anyway, okay, I'm going to read a scripture or two, and let's get it back to the Hebrew mentality just a minute. Leviticus 17:6 says, "And the priest shall sprinkle the blood upon the altar of the Lord at the door of the tent of meeting." And here you have the Hebrew. The priestly system was for the blood to be sprinkled at the door of the tent of meeting. The mezuzah, mezuzah is the word for lentil, I believe. I learned it now. I'm not sure that's exactly right, but I believe so. But the little thing that the pious Jews have on the side of their doors is called a mezuzah. Well, it's a container of tiny scripture verses. I mean, it's written tiny, in tiny script. What does he say here, Anain? Let's see. Oh yeah, he says there. Then the Jew says, "The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in." It's something they recite, Psalm 121, when they go in and come out and touch the mezuzah. I'm going to mention a few more things about the threshold, and then I want to go into some other kind of the blood sacrifices that were made at foundations, when the foundation was laid for things, which ties into this threshold thing. When an Arab man wanted to leave his tribe and join another, he took his sacrifice with him to the doorway of the sheikh's tent of which tribe he wanted to join. Did the sacrifice there, and then the sheik, would invite him in and accept him into his tribe. When there was an enemy that needed to be reconciled with, if an Arab wanted to reconcile with his enemy, what did he do? He took the sacrificial lamb, or however big the sacrifice, which might be required, with him to the door of the tent of his enemy for reconciliation. This was, that's the way things were done then. I mean, the crossing over this threshold was a barrier. I mean, we have to get it through our minds that there was a barrier in the minds of the ancient peoples at the threshold of a home. And the home was the temple then. Before there were temples, the home, and the father was like the priest. And so sacrifice had to be made to go into the temple home. So, all right, next time I want to talk about the foundation, the laying of foundation stones, and how that relates to the threshold. Because, and there's more about the covenant that God made with Abraham for that land in Genesis 15. There's a rich history behind that too. Take us a couple more videos.